INDIEstructable Gaming. Select your character. Musketshot. Mr. K. Let the battle begin. Get ready for a battle unknown. 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to INDIEstructable Gaming and More. I'm Musketshot. Alongside me is my co-host, Mr. K, and we have a special guest with us this episode. It's Fabio Rosa he's one of the co-founders and head of studio at Coffeenauts in Sao Paulo, Brazil, right?
That's right.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Really excited to have you here.
So we're excited to talk to Fabio because his company Coffeenauts is developed a new game that's coming out in March. I believe it's March 10th is the scheduled release date.
So we're changing it to like a month later than that. So like end of April. But yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Okay.
And the game is called Spacelines from the Far Out. And
that's right.
And that is, there's a demo available on Steam. So if you want to get a early try at this game, you can go to the Steam and download the demo. But otherwise, if you want to wait for the full game to come out, it'll be April. But it'll be on Steam. And then, are you releasing it on other platforms like Xbox or Switch or anything like that at some point?
Yes. The initial release, we're going to simultaneously release on Epic Game Store, Steam, Xbox.
Oh, wow.
And for Epic Games and Steam, we're simultaneously releasing a PC, Mac, and Linux versions.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of time building the game.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Now, your company was... Coffeenauts was founded in 2018. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. And if listeners are interested in visiting your website, it's at coffeenauts.com. Coffee spelled as it normally is, and then knots, it's Nauts. Well, one word, coffeenauts.com. But you can also be found on Facebook and Twitter as well. So plenty of places to go and check out your website and other information about this game, Spacelines from the Far Out. Is it? There's a question I had. It escaped me now. But is it difficult to get a game on all those different platforms all at once, or does it take a lot more developing work to get it on there?
Yeah, this is something that it's funny. Like. We usually don't predict this type of hassle that's going to be to add a game to a platform. Like usually we think, okay, we got to market the game, we got to make the game, and that's it. But like you're selling the game at a platform that has a lot of prerequisites and stuff like that. So it's a lot of work to release on all those platforms. But in our case, it was particularly a lot of work because we decided to add achievements. That's the thing we have in the game. And the game is online multiplayer with cross-platform. So we have to be able to implement stuff like invite people through Steam. And if you're playing somebody on Steam and somebody on Xbox at the same time, the game has to tell people it's doing that. So there's a lot of things involved with just getting the game to run on the platform.
Right.
And for all the developers out there, reserve a lot of time for that.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I can't imagine. It's. I mean, you hear about developers when they put out a game. Sometimes they limit it to, like, maybe just we're putting it on Steam first or something like that, with hopes to get it to Xbox or Switch or PlayStation at some point down the road. But you guys are you're getting it out there on everything, which is really, really cool. So.
Yeah, we're a little crazy. But yeah, I think it's a good idea for especially if you're self-publishing,
right?
To go through Steam first and then think of other things.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to go.
Yep. Now you and your co-founder Pedro Bechara, you met in college and you founded Coffeenauts, and this game, Spacelines from the Far Out, was part of a college project. I believe from on your website it said that you were working on it together. So how did you first connect in college, and then was this final project what made you both decide to form Coffeenauts?
That's a good question. So we, by the way, when I say college, I'm specifically talking about it's a college level game design course we have here in São Paulo, which is pretty cool.
It's actually really neat.
Yeah, it's like 4 years, and it's college, but it is game design college. So we learn about all kinds of stuff. And I met Pedro and also the other co-creators of Spacelines. Actually, in the first semester of the first year of college, and this particular course is pretty interesting because every semester you have to kind of graduate that semester with a finished project. So even like the first semester, when we don't know how to program, we don't know how to do all mess with Unity, we have to make a board game because we already have to learn how to project management and create like game design things. So every semester you need to have a project, and Pedro and I, we really clicked from the beginning because I'm a very anxious person and he's a very anxious person, and we're both very ambitious. So we took all these projects so seriously that I feel like I have had this company with him since 2014, which was when we started. So every time we made a project, we were thinking, let's make something as if we're going to sell it to the market, not just as a school project. And then we already in college, we started to refine our kind of our chemistry and the way we manage stuff. And then when we got to the final year, we had to make this big project, this game demo, and Spacelines started there. And after we left, we were like, okay, that's going to be the one we're going to shoot for and try to get investments.
Oh, that's neat. So now, did you have prior developing background before you started the course, or did you play around at home with some of your own stuff at developing things?
No, yeah, that's I've always been a nerd, and I like messing with stuff and messing with computers and stuff like that. But up until 2019, so I was already started Coffeenauts. I worked as an English teacher here in São Paulo.
Okay.
Oh.
So I worked for a long time as an English teacher, and then I was like, okay, I want to have a career that fits my personality more. Then I found out about this course, and then my mission was, okay, I'm going to change. I'm going to stop being an English teacher eventually, and it happened. So now I'm a game developer, and I hope it is turning out good, but I hope it's a long-term thing. So
I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, you made this thing back in college, and now it's coming out and it's big and people know about it. It must feel pretty good.
It does. It feels very unreal also. It's hard to believe, especially because there are some very nice, very cool Brazilian games. There are some Brazilian video game developers, but this never happened with a student project from Brazil. And I know this is very common. I've seen a lot of awesome games that I later found out that were student projects, like from France, from America, and but so it's pretty unreal. And a lot of the times it feels like we're going on a path that we have no reference to, like if it's right or not, because we're uh, trailing. What's the word? We're making that path, you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because there's others that probably haven't done anything similar to what you've done from Brazil. So you're sort of leading the way in the.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that like are we didn't really expect that would be challenges, and then they came, and then we had to, like when we got the nomination for the award in America, I didn't even have a visa, an American visa. It's a lot of stuff that we had to wing, and we're still here. So
yeah, that's excellent.
Okay,
that's excellent.
So how did you get the name Coffeenauts?
The story is more obvious than I wanted it to be. I wish it was something amazing, like an astronaut brought me coffee from space. But really, it's just that Pedro and I, we are extremely, ridiculously addicted to coffee, and it feels like our third business partner, as a, you know, like it really got us through college, because like we were both doing college and working at the same time. I was still teaching English all the time, and then for 2018 and 2019, the whole project was a side thing, because we were like, okay, well, let's present this to a bunch of people and try to get. We didn't have really investments and money, so we had to do a lot of things at the same time. And coffee, as most of the world is familiar, it helps with this type of thing. So, you know, it's kind of a tribute to our favorite drug ever. Also, we like space, so
yeah,
astronauts.
Who doesn't?
No, you didn't. When playing the game, I haven't seen any yet. But did you think about putting any like little coffee bistros in any of the terminals or anything like that?
Yes, we're doing that actually.
Great.
We're gonna have a Coffeenauts cafe.
Oh,
at the
excellent!
Big space terminal.
Oh, that's really cool.
Does Sao Paulo in Brazil, as a country, have a large gaming audience?
Yeah, I think Brazil. It's been a while since I last checked this, but I think Brazil is like in the top 5 countries in the world with the most people playing games. Like we have a humongous gaming community. Like people love video games here in Brazil, and it's a huge country. I mean, it's and São Paulo is also a huge city. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people play games in Brazil. It's a major thing, myself included. What is not big, I mean, I should say it's not proportional to how many gamers we have, is how many game companies we have here. So I don't know, I'm hoping I can be helping change that statistic. But yeah, a lot of people love games here.
Have you seen a large growth of like indie game industries in Brazil? I mean,
well, yeah, it's been in a steady growth, I think, for the past few years. Like we had like some pioneers, like some people who you know made games by themselves, and it was just an experiment. And it's kind of an industry forming is a very complicated thing. It's not just about people wanting to work or companies, but also it's the whole circuit. You know, like I am from maybe I'm not a pioneer in every sense of the word, because I come from a generation of people that want to work with games from Brazil that had a course. Like I was able to study game design and make the company here, and like to have this kind of cycle that, like in America, that's very established. Like you study it somewhere, and then you work right next to the place, and then you collaborate with the university, and it's a whole closed loop. And that's still being developed here, but I can tell you guys that it's a steady growth. Like we have a lot of game companies in Brazil. We have some big ones. I'm not gonna say they're ginormous, but like big as in like there's I think the biggest one maybe has 200 people or 250 people working there. It's a lot. My company has 7.
Yeah.
So and something nice that's been happening for the past like also a few years is that the government, the Brazilian government, has always subsidized like culture and cinema and this type of thing. Like Brazilian music is very famous abroad. There's a lot of Brazilian movies that get picked up internationally. And now the government is understanding that there's this looming industry, which is the game industry. So now we have like government organizations that like help us, figure out how to go to an international convention, and kind of this is something that is a pretty common thing. These organizations that subsidize and help a little bit. So it's pretty promising. And a good thing is that people are very excited about working with games here. And for international investors, it's that excitement mixed with like some, let's say, exchange rate benefits makes Brazil a good place to invest in game companies. So it's promising.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2020, you guys closed a publishing deal with Skystone Games.
Yes.
So did you or Pedro reach out to Skystone Games, or did they reach out to you? How did that work out?
We reached out to them.
Mm-hmm.
So something that I had been doing since early 2018 was I would go to like online or in-person events.
Mm-hmm.
I would like schedule a meeting with 100 publishers, or like I probably pitched Spacelines to maybe 500 different people over the years.
Wow.
It's it takes a lot of persistence. And then I in early 2020, I was looking at a list of publishers, and I saw this new one, and they were starting out. And I talked to them, and we kind of clicked, and it happened. They decided to close the deal with us. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. So it's got to be a little tough too, though. You're reaching out to all these different publishers, and they're not all that interested. It must be kind of tough to go like, oh, are we ever going to get this thing published? Or are we just going to do it on our own? And it's great that Skystone was able to click with you guys, but it must be difficult to deal with a lot of the declining opportunities there from them.
The other publishers just lost it. They lost it. It's just a really good game.
Thank you. That's very flattering. Well, it's very hard to hear the word no so many times. But I don't know. There are some things that you have to have very clear in your mind, and so you can deal with it. Like, I guess the fact that we're from Brazil and it's a student project, we always were very careful to manage expectations. Like to be like, I'm sure they're gonna say no, but that doesn't mean that we would stop. Like, if you're sure they're going to say no, why would you stop? Because there's a chance.
Right.
So that's the first thing you should keep in mind. The second thing is that it was never an idea we had, like, oh, let's do it on our own. Let's self-publish. Let's use our own funds and get a loan, a bank loan, because part of us knew that we also needed a publisher, or needed to have that experience of have dozens of people say that our game is bad. That's what makes the game good, And I think a big problem that people have is that they already think their game is amazing.
Right.
And it never is. And there's even like Spacelines, I think there's so much that we need to fix, but we're always trying to. There's a part of that. Every time we heard no, that was like, okay, but why not? I know I'm not trying to be difficult. Just tell me why not. So maybe for next meeting, so we would use that as sort of have to get professional feedback.
Yep. And
the third thing that I think really helped is we were patient. Like I didn't quit my English teaching job as soon as somebody told me that the game was good. It involves being patient and also, okay, I'm going to use the weekends to do stuff with the game, or late nights or stuff like that, because I think that's a thing that happens to a lot of startups. They accidentally enter this euphoria, or somebody gives them some money and they're like, okay, cool, let's start. And then they buy an office, and then there was no like how people that win the lottery go broke, because it's not sustainable.
Right.
So I only left teaching English when I was like, okay, two big American companies already, because before Skystone, Xbox also gave us some support.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah, that's the reason they actually first they came. That's the reason we're releasing on Xbox.
I did see you guys on ID at Xbox a while back. I mean, I don't remember too much about it because that was a very long presentation, but I do remember seeing you guys there.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing. I met the Xbox people at GDC in 2019, San Francisco, and we had just won the prizes, and I was holding the prizes in my in both hands, and I had this meeting scheduled with Xbox, and then I sat on the table and I put the prizes on the table, and that was kind of a power move. So I was like, okay, boom. So yeah, my name is Fabio, and we clicked, and Xbox is I don't know how they do it, but it's a huge company that belongs to this huge conglomerate, but they're so nice over there. Like, it's a great people to work with, and they listen, and it's awesome. So they liked us, and these things are like, okay, I think we're on to something. And then after all of this, we're like, okay, you know what? That's my job now. That's my job.
Nice.
So I haven't taught English in a long time.
It's a good story though, because like you said, you got to be persistent and be willing to take the lumps and take that feedback and learn from it, and stay positive on your game and what you want to do with it. And it takes time, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of developers sometimes they kind of give up on things when they probably shouldn't. Just keep at it and keep working on it. Good things will come if you keep working, and so it's great.
Every game can get good if you're open enough to accept.
Right. Fabio, as far as a publisher, like, what is their role for your game? Is it more of a marketing role, or do they provide support and money, or what does a publisher actually do for you, the developer?
There's a lot of different types of publisher deals. It really depends on the situation, but I guess there are three major ways that the publishers work with developers. So first, and it's by funding a project, right? So they provide funds, and those funds are depends on the deal. Like they can be recouped through sales. Like we have a revenue share agreement. Okay, so you're gonna help me make this game, and then we share whatever we sell. And it can be different depending on the publisher. Some publishers might buy the intellectual property. It's not our case. The other way is like what you said with marketing, and like it goes beyond marketing. It's really publishing, because it's also about helping put you in some platforms. Xbox we got on our own, but like Skystone contacted Epic Game Store, and it's kind of helping get the word out there. And third, and this I guess depends on the publisher, but in our case, David Brevik, the guy who created Diablo, he is one of the co-founders of Skystone, is giving feedback and giving you some tips. And that's also a pretty surreal thing that I can't believe I'm even saying it. Like the guy who made Diablo frequently goes on calls with us, and he's like, "Oh, you should make that thing a little faster, or you should add a timer, or you should add that." So with actual feedback about the game. So that's how.
Oh, okay, great.
That's still awesome that you know the guy who made Diablo.
Yeah, it's it's really, really weird.
That sounds like something I would just bring up in like a lunch conversation. It would spark something between everyone, because that's crazy.
Yeah, that's the annoying thing is that I met the guy that made Diablo, and then the pandemic hit. I don't have enough social interaction, so I can flex that.
That's funny.
Yeah, unfortunately, but yeah, it's pretty cool, and he's a great guy also.
So Spacelines from the Far Out is a roguelike co-op where the pilot of a passenger aircraft is your own, and your mission is to transport guests from one terminal to another in space. While you do this, you need to cater to the passengers' needs. How did the idea for that come about?
That's a question that I have a good, interesting answer to, instead, unlike the Coffeenauts one, because we created this game in this academic environment. We had to the games that we created in the final year project. We had to have this sort of academic justification for why we wanted to explore this, like an academic in the sense of like we had to justify it as some sort of research. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna research games for blind people or whatever. And in our case, at that time, we were really, really into couch co-op games, and Overcooked, Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time. We're really tight-knit group and really like to play games together. And we're not very good at games, so we prefer the co-op games. We didn't really like competing. And I guess the initial spark came, and I'm in no way saying Overcooked is not good. I love the game. It's amazing. But the initial spark was we were playing Overcooked a lot, and then we finished it. And then we were like, so do you want to play that particular level again? And then we did, but we're like, okay, we already know how to beat that level. And then we started to understand that, okay, Overcooked is a puzzle game. Of course, it's couch co-op, it's about cooking, it's frantic, but it is really a puzzle game. And the puzzle is you have to figure out the optimal strategy and how to organize your team to finish that level in time. So we were like, okay, so Overcooked, there's a lot of level design behind this game. It's not just the mechanics, it's just a lot of level design. That's really where the game shines. But that the game is over at a certain point. So we're like, okay, what games aren't so reliant on level design, but also have a lot, have well-balanced experiences? And we immediately thought of roguelike genre, like Faster Than Light. So unlike Overcooked or games like it, like you don't know what's going to happen. You can play the same level 100 times, and it's always going to be slightly different. So we're thinking, okay, can we do Overcooked, but with like everything is procedural and the challenges are they kind of, it's like roguelike and everything is randomly generated. And that sounds simple, but it's really hard to find something like it, because that's the thing. Usually roguelike games have combat and they have enemies and they have dungeons, and it's like you can create a lot of variety, and it's a thing that the game design, that the game design and the game industry is really perfected, like how to have a lot of variety in terms of combat. And but our game is not violent. Like we want to make a game that is about, it's a cooperative game, so we're not competing against each other, and our objective is not like, because I can tell you a very good procedural co-op game that is infinitely replayable, Left 4 Dead, but it's really not for kids. You know,
Right. Yeah, right. That's true.
Left 4 Dead is amazing. It's a cooperative game that you can play millions of times. Like Portal 2 is really cool, but once you play it, you're done. That's it. You figured out the campaign. It's a puzzle game. Left 4 Dead, you kept going, because like the game self-balanced and it changed what's gonna happen, and it's always the same campaign, but it's always different. You never know where the tank is gonna appear and what weapons you're gonna have. So we're like, okay, we gotta do like a Left 4 Dead engine for an Overcooked like game, so we can have this sort of roguelike co-op party game. So we came up with Spacelines from the Far Out. That's kind of the end result of that. It's we had to create a lot of different mechanics. So the game had a lot of emergent dynamic situations. So the game could have enough tools to always give you fresh challenges, and also never be too difficult or unfair. It's a really big challenge, and that's where the idea came from. And why is it in space? Like I said, everything is cooler in space. So
everyone likes space.
Yeah. So that a lot of the characters will have, bubbles or like a box in front of them. Down below, there's their faces and stuff like that, and they're roaming around on the ship. And on the ship, and in front of their faces, it'll tell you basically, the pilot, what their needs are. I'm hungry. I need entertainment. I need a bathroom. All that types of stuff. So was there any other ideas that you were thinking of as far as how you wanted the passengers to sort of tell what they wanted or needs besides that, or was that basically the easiest way to kind of do that?
There were a lot of ideas, and when we were like, okay, we're gonna do like this customer service industry game, and we were thinking a really cool game on that front is Roller Coaster Tycoon, because it has a bunch of like these AI little guys, and you can see how they're feeling, etc. But we had to remind ourselves, this is a party game. We want people to just hop in and play. Maybe they can play for 15 minutes, and that's their play session. And so how do you because in a roller coaster you can click on a guy and then you know everything about him, his name, if his like how the percentage of his nausea, how if he's hungry, if he's satisfied. So not just with the passengers, but actually with most things in the game, we wanted to make it visible. Like I think the word is diegetic. Like we wanted to make it something that you can see in game. So we had to make the animations. They show that they're hungry. They show that they're pissed off or they're bored. And if we're gonna use graphic elements like on a heads-up display, we didn't want any text. We had to use a lot of color and icons, and it's really hard. One of the mechanics in the game that came from this challenge was the health inspector, because when we were developing the game, we were kind of getting bored of just like there's only two ways of losing the game: you run out of fuel or your ship explodes. But we were like, if that's the case, we're never going to lose the game if you're a bad airline, a bad space line. And in Roller Coaster Tycoon, if you do a bad job, if a lot of people die in your park, or if there's no food, or if everything's dirty, you can lose the game. In Roller Coaster Tycoon, because a management game, you have the stats. So if your park gets below this percentage of rating, you're going to lose. And that's fine for a game like that. But we thought, okay, we have to make the way you lose the game because you're doing a bad job. We have to make that diegetic and narrative. So that's why we created the health inspector guy. It's a guy that comes to your ship if your reputation is low, and he makes you lose the game because he saw something that you can see. It's all there. So that became the third and the funniest way you can lose in the game.
Well, I definitely lost because I ran out of fuel a couple of times. So, it's sometimes the passengers they'll kind of distract you a little bit. Yep. You go by the terminal and you're like, oh my gosh, I went right by it. Now I'm late. But yeah. Let's see.
Each space terminal had a different design in the color scheme. And your website mentions a 60s retro space odyssey. Did that idea come from past experience traveling, or like looking for inspiration at like posters and pictures and magazines?
I guess over the years we had a lot of reasons to want to have like this 60s retro look. I guess the most boring and simplest one is it's very charismatic. And it's weird because up until now, we didn't really see a lot of games that we saw a lot of retrofuturistic games, but like Fallout, it's kind of 50s, 40s diesel punk, ray gun aesthetic. It's kind of like scary sci-fi from the 40s and 50s. You see some 80s inspired stuff like cyberpunk games or alien stuff. But you had this whole world of retro science fiction from the 60s, which is like from the time of the original Star Trek, that everything was a little more colorful. We had this in-between moment, like you had the 40s, it was like the monster from Planet 9, 40s, 50s, and then 60s, space was amazing. It was colorful and fun, and it was just this huge, awesome utopia of comfort. And then after the first Alien movie, and then the stuff from the 70s and 80s, the future got dark again and got grimy and awful. So in movies, you see a lot of stuff inspired by the 60s, like Pixar. They love using mid-century modern stuff, or like The Incredibles is basically set in the 60s. But we didn't really see that a lot in games. There's one game, which is called Evil Genius, which is really cool.
Oh, I've heard of that, yeah.
It's really cool, and it's inspired by James Bond movies from the 60s. And so we kind of saw this gap there. But why retrofuturistic in the first place? because there's something inherently funny about looking at how people saw the future in the past, like it's kind of humbling. You see how wrong we were, like, you see these things from the 60s. By the year 20 something you will be able to print your newspaper at your home. Like, that's not as wrong. But we like that, and we in the game we try to create stuff that is nonsensical. Like, why would you need to use space airlines if there is teleportation, or like these nonsensical things? And we're not the first ones to do retrofuturism for comedy. Futurama is a big inspiration for us. Like, they really nailed that retro thing and that nonsensical sci-fi thing. I really like how there's an episode there they want to fill the swimming pool and they have like instant water. It's like a powder thing, and then you have to add water for it to become water. It's weird. It doesn't make any sense.
I love that show so much.
Rick and Morty does that a lot. Also, so we didn't want it to look like Halo. Nothing against Halo. It's just that Halo is just futurism. It's sci-fi. Everything is sleek, and we wanted to have stuff made of wood in space. So it's kind of a look, and it's really fun. And I guess the final thing that the reason we chose the 60s is because a lot of people consider the 60s to be also like this golden age of air travel. Like, there's a lot of iconic stuff related to air travel from the 60s. Like, we have Pan Am and TWA. They made that crazy airport terminal in New York. It's kind of glamorous, and you have these the flight attendants. They have really elaborate clothes, and mixing that with aliens vomiting, it's funny.
Yeah, it kind of the look of the game in animation and stuff like that, the colors, the scheme that you use, it reminds me of stuff that you would see like in the 60s from like cartoons like the Jetsons, or what Disney was doing in Disneyland with what Tomorrowland would be, and how
absolutely
they had, you go on the rides and there was like, people in these spaceships or living in space, and it was
kind of reminds you like one of those like terminal videos, like instructional videos you'd watch while on the plane, and it's like for the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
So
there was a world fair in the 60s that had all these kind of like the city of tomorrow, and it's funny, like it's Spacelines from the Far Out is a very Americanized game. Like it's also about that kind of consumer culture from the 60s, and like you're gonna your life will be made 10 million times better because you're gonna have this washing machine and and this toaster, and it's kind of nostalgia. It's kind of making fun and paying tribute at the same time.
Right. Yeah. So now the music that you guys use in the terminals, is that something that you guys created, or did you have somebody develop some of that, come up with that music? Has a very relaxing sound to it. I know every time I was roaming around in the terminals, I was like, I love the music in these terminals. It reminds me of being in an actual terminal. I mean, sometimes, for, going on a flight or something, but.
That was a huge deal for us. Well, I'm a big jazz guy, and the 60s were also a very interesting era for music, particularly for Brazilian people, because like you got like in the 40s and bebop and jazz, and the 50s, and then by the 60s, America was getting a little more, wacky and you had the British invasion, and America was kind of accepting stuff from other countries, and you saw a lot of jazz people adding like Latin percussion instruments, and from Brazil, the major thing that came to America was bossa nova, with Tom Jobim and these famous Brazilian musicians, and so we were thinking we really want to get that aesthetic, and also so to us it was important that we should have some Brazilian or Brazilian sounding music in the game, but also that whole big band wholesome sound that you had, like I Dream of Jeannie, or Bewitched, or even the original Star Trek opening theme. They're very like, if you like,
there's a lot of
sci-fi themes today. They're just like synthesizers, and they're dark, and they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
At that time, it was like whistles and magical stuff. So that was really important, and we spent a lot of time thinking about that. And we created this playlist, this whole kind of a mood board, and for us to create the soundtrack, because we wanted to invest a good money in it. The problem was that's who's going to make that? Who's going to do that? I'm not a musician. I just like music. So thankfully, we contacted a guy called Michel Fredensen, and he is he's like one of the best jazz piano players in Brazil. He's played with a lot of incredible people over the years, and he has his own band, and he plays, but he also makes music for stuff, for cinema, for advertising. He had never made for games. We contacted him, and he was like, "Okay, I think I got it." And then he showed us a sample from, like, is that what you're looking for? And the sample was the Spacelines theme, which is the song that plays in the home menu of the game. And we were like, oh my god, you got it, it's perfect. So we closed the deal, and he made all the music in the game, and we were so happy about it. I think, in my opinion, that's maybe my favorite thing in the game is the music.
You have to put out a soundtrack for people. I see a lot of people that do that on Steam. They put out the soundtrack from the game as that's separate download too.
But on Spotify, I listen.
Yeah, right.
Were there any thoughts of adding voice acting to the game in voiceovers?
Yes. There's a lot of written text in the game, but the characters don't speak. Right? Currently, all the voices of the aliens, our sound guy, he made those. He made himself, like, so. The alien is bored, and he went like, the alien is nervous. He went, gibberish. So there is voice acting, in a way, but we were considering recently that it would be fun to have different voices for each alien, even if it's just a gibberish. But we thought that maybe we could get people from outside the team to do those voices. This is something like still an idea in progress, but who knows? Like we get some astronaut to do the voice of one of the aliens, or some people in the space industry, or something fun. So
that would be really cool.
Yeah, like we get who knows, Neil deGrasse Tyson to be the voice of one of the grumpy aliens or whatever.
I would enjoy to hear that.
But it's just an idea. So currently, the only voices we have are our sound guy Arthur doing gibberish on a microphone.
There's a lot of replayability in the game, which is always a plus when you buy a game. I like that a lot, honestly. How important was this when developing it?
Extremely. especially considering the whole initial idea that we wanted a more replayable Overcooked. So that was really important, but not just because we wanted it, but also it's a mistake that we see a lot of people that want to get into making games is that their ideas are like, okay, I want to make a really cool story-driven game, or I'm going to make like every time you decide to make a story-driven game, or you decide to make a game that is going to be long because you're going to have a lot of content, that's a bad idea for a first-timer, for an indie developer. When you're an indie developer, if you want to make a story game, just accept that it's going to be a short game, and it's going to be like a 1 hour long, and it's going to be a short story, and that's it. And because you're going to have to make it, right? Like just like Phil Duncan from Overcooked, it's not a story-driven game, but it is a level design-based game. He had to design every single level, and that's hard. So when you are indie and you want to make a game that you're trying to reach for many hours of gameplay, the best bang for your buck you can have is to create a game that has a system that can create gameplay on its own. That's why roguelikes are such a good deal when you're an indie creator, because you create the system. You don't have to make every single situation by hand. So that was a really important decision also. We wanted a big-ish game that we could make as a starting studio. And that also applies for competitive games, because competitive games are naturally replayable because the unpredictable part is the other guy. So that's also a good idea for indie developers, like make a competitive game, because then you don't need to create the gameplay. Players will create that.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that we talk about a lot on our podcast when we're reviewing games is, sometimes the question is, is this game a replayable game? Is it something that you would play again more than, once or twice? And some games that we've played are fantastic games, but then there's, those you really think about it and you're like, okay, we've played it twice, or, whether it was together or with some, us and then somebody else. But then after that, you're like, well, I don't think I could play it again. And maybe I could in a few years, but not anytime soon. So to me, I think it's a big deal if it's a replayable game that you could pick up at any time. And like you said, even if it's 15 minutes of just playing or half an hour playing, that's, I think, worth the money to me, as far as a consumer buying a game. I think that makes it a big plus.
And there's nothing wrong with a game not being replayable. It's just that it's really what you want from that product and what you can deliver. It's like a movie, You don't watch a movie hundreds of times in a row. You watch it and you're done, and that's something that works for some business, some business plans and some types of budgets. But if you're an indie developer and you want people going back to your game, absolutely, you need to make a replayable game. Yeah.
So I know when you first start up this game, you go through a quick tutorial, and it is a quick tutorial, which is great because some games, the tutorials are so long and so involved that you're like, oh my goodness. But this is great. It gives you kind of a quick overview of the spaceship, how to maneuver, how to do things, how to handle the passengers. And then you just kind of get in it, buy a ship and, pick your uniform and all that stuff. So I guess the game mechanics are relatively simple to play, pick up. That had to been pretty important for you guys, right? As far as, not over, making it too difficult to just, all kinds of different buttons that do and all kinds of things. Making it simple was probably the better way to go on this.
Oh yeah, and something counterintuitive. One of the many thousands of things that I discovered that is counterintuitive over the years. Like, what is harder, to make a game that you have like X crouches, B shoots, A aims, Y opens the menu. Like, you have 13 different actions in the gamepad, or a game that you just press A. It's way harder to have just A, because the game has to think for you. That's just kind of something that we discovered. Like everything in Spacelines, you're just pushing the same button, just the interaction button, which is really the beauty of what these geniuses who brought back couch co-op, Overcooked, and Lovers in Dangerous Space Time. That's what they've really figured out. Like everything has to be contextual, and that makes it really simple for players. Like the only thing you can do when you're at that situation is the thing you have to do, but it makes it really hard for developers, because we have to make sure the game knows exactly what's happening, what's in your hand, if your hands are empty, what you're looking at, and for then you just hit the button and the game does it for you. And it was a really important decision, because we wanted it to be a party game, and people just they come to your home and you're playing it, and like, oh, can I join you? Yeah, sure, just go ahead. It's
right. Yeah,
just play it.
Yeah, it's not you don't have to teach them all the different moves and all the different things that they, some of these games that you have to be almost taught how to do all these things and almost go through a whole tutorial on your own before you can even pick up a controller. So I love the fact that you guys did that in this game. It's great. So a lot of in the game, it's really important, obviously, to maintain your ship, make sure you refuel at the different ports. Sometimes you got to do maintenance on the ship, and there's different upgrades that you can purchase at all the different terminals. So you can buy different chairs for the passengers to sit on. There's toilets. There's all kinds of different things that you can buy. But one of the things I really liked was sometimes the passengers leave packages behind in the terminal, and you would get to open them and then get some sort of surprise. So it was like a couple times I got stewards or associates that I could come work with me, and then other things were like chairs and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really cool idea, because you're spending the money to refuel, do maintenance and stuff like that, and sometimes you don't have a lot of the money depending on your gameplay. So I thought that was kind of a nice bonus to sort of be able to grab some of those things and not have a person be frustrated by like, oh, I don't have enough money to buy these things here. And you get those nice little bonuses. So that was pretty cool that you guys threw that in there.
That was really important from the start, that we had constant rewards, because that's really the beauty of what Faster Than Light did. Faster Than Light is roguelike and it's procedural, and it's the procedural dungeon, but really it's always the same campaign. There's some variation, but and some events may happen or may not happen, but it's always the same campaign. You have to get to the end and kill the boss, and it's the same thing in Spacelines. But what we wanted to do to keep people playing is that, like, even though you're playing the same campaign always, there's always new stuff that's appearing. And in the version that you guys played, we still haven't implemented all the spaceship, the unlockable spaceships, but we want people to unlock spaceships right away. And so you try with that one, that sucked. Let me try another one, and having these packages, we hope they make you want to keep going and finding out more until you see all the content in the game. So we spent a lot of time making there's like 60 different unlockable characters, 100 different unlockable customizations for your company, like 30 different spaceship skins. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot, a lot of stuff that goes into it. What it's great though. I love all that type of stuff. I love having being able to get like bonus stuff that, again, my game playing is not the greatest. Mr. K is definitely a lot better at gaming than I am. So, anything I'll he loves roguelikes. I mean, I'll take anything that's any bonuses and stuff like that helps me that I wouldn't normally get. So that's awesome. So I know you guys have received a whole bunch of awards for your games and stuff like that. Your website, you have a whole bunch. And now, are they all for Spaceline? Because they say Spaceline Crew, so I don't know if is that the same Spaceline?
Same game.
Same thing. Okay.
Yeah, we the game in college and up until 2020 was called Spaceline Crew.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But it's the same game.
Same game.
We just decided to update the name to something weirder because we're kind of constructing this eccentric brand. So we changed it to Spacelines from the Far Out. Also,
cool.
Far Out is a very 60s expression. So
right, sure. So so I know that this game is coming out soon. What type of besides, I guess, getting it out on all the different platforms, what other type of marketing are you doing right now?
Well, this.
Yep.
So that. Well, it's almost as hard as making the game. Market the game.
Right.
It's a lot of different fronts, but we are going to be featured on the Steam Next Fest, which is coming February 21st.
Excellent.
We're gonna have like people live streaming the game. We're gonna send out an updated demo for people to play. And it's a lot about doing outreach and taking the game to people who like this sort of games and getting them to play and building this kind of community. It's a lot of hard work, and especially when you don't really have a big marketing budget, it's kind of grassroots guerrilla thing. So I can't just go like send an email to PewDiePie, Right. Sometimes it's better for me to send to contact people that have like an average amount of followers, and it's not like the biggest person ever. But then maybe we're more likely to get a yes, and maybe that it's not going to be such a general audience. It's going to be like maybe people that specifically enjoy this type of game. So it's really about choosing the people, taking the time to contact them. And just like what happened when we were presenting the game to publishers, like you're going to have a lot of people ghosting you. But if there's 10 that say yes, that was worth it. So
that's more than happy to have you here.
Yeah, it's
really cool.
It's kind of like what we do too. We're not anything huge, but we've reached out to a lot of different developers and publishers and stuff like that for to do either game interviews and stuff. And you get ghosted a lot, and a lot of times people don't respond. And then sometimes you get folks like yourself and others that will reach out to us and be like, "Hey, would you guys be willing to try this game?" And it's like, "Oh, cool!" And then when the opportunity comes to, "Hey, would you like to do an interview too? And we can talk to you." It's like, yeah, that's even better too, because it's like it's great to get to play the game, but it's really cool to be able to talk to the actual developers and stuff as well, and try to get their idea on it, why they did the game this way and how they came up with it. It's really an honor to be able to do that. It's pretty cool. So
and we're here doing this now, but I'm sure that you guys and that applies to me. People that like indie games are also people that are interested in making games, and that's really like it's the same thing with cinema. Like there's a reason people make behind the scenes stuff and making of, because like there is the magic of the movie itself or the game itself, and there's the magic of making this happen. And it's yeah, to me it just makes it that more enjoyable when I see how people make a game, or when I get to see behind the scenes. So it's nice for people to have these developer-centered podcasts and portals.
Yeah, that was one of the things when we created this back in early 2020. We decided that, you know, it's great. There's a lot of podcasts out there that focus on the big games, but we really liked the indie games because there were so many different indie games out there and a lot of different sources to try to, you know, play these different games online and stuff. But you know, a lot of them just go under the radar. They never get, you know, people never really talk about them, people don't really know about them. And we really wanted to make sure that we made an effort to like sort of focus our attention on indie games. Yeah, we do play some of the big titles every once in a while, but the indie games I think are really important. And I don't know how many times we've played some of these games that we really didn't know about and ended up like absolutely loving the game. Like, wow, if we had never done this, we would have never been able to get a chance to play this game or find this game, probably, because we wouldn't have been looking for it. So it's really been an eye opener, I think, for us doing this podcast to find some really, really great titles out there and really great developers and developer and companies. So it's awesome. I know you guys have some other titles on your website. Now, are those developed games, or are those games that you just help design and stuff like that? Or are those part of projects from college, maybe?
Yep, that's what they are. They are all of our college projects, and that's one way to describe them. But the way that Pedro and I describe them there are future projects that we're gonna finish. So, something that's also an unexpected part of this whole thing is you have to look like a company, you know, even if you're not really exactly a company. To start now, I'm a company, but like I was like showing my game to a bunch of people, and they're like, "Yeah, but who are you exactly? What, are you gonna finish this?" So it's important to know how to present yourself. So to us it was important to have right away a website, and our school projects, they were all pretty cool. So we added them to our portfolio, you know, in a way to show people that we can make games, and they haven't been released, but they maybe will soon. And it's important to be in a healthy way proud of the stuff you did even in college. So hopefully one of those will be our second game. Well, I mean, you at least you got a if one of them does become your second game, you've already got an idea and in the works there. So it's not like you got to really start from scratch. It's sort of already there. It's just to build upon it, right? Yeah, that was the great part about that course. It forced you to be creatively productive, like to make a different thing every semester. It's really hard to create a game concept. Yeah.
So are you going to be attending anything like PAX? I don't know if there's a PAX coming out this year, but if there was one, would you go to it?
That's a difficult question because everything depends on the pandemic, right? So it's...
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Yeah, so yes, if we can. But as best as we could, we're trying to participate in events. Especially these events that have like online versions, and they've been cool. But a party game like ours, it's really cool to have people play. So it's kind of a bummer, but I think like I know a lot of people that are going to GDC, which is next month. I'm not going, and I would like to, but I think it's not worth it because it's a risk, and it's a risk, and it's mostly not necessary. That's the funny thing about making a game company, is that you don't have a choice. You are an international company right away. Like it's not like I'm making a cafe or a restaurant, and then after years and years of becoming this huge restaurant, I have become a chain, and I start expanding. I'm starting as a global company. I have to have relations with people from other countries, and that's the way the game industry works for indie developers. Like, we have to sell the game to different countries in these big platforms. So it's really, when the pandemic hit and people were like, oh my God, I don't know how to use Zoom. What do I even do? Everybody in the game industry was like, it's just another day. That's how we work. We are always talking to people from very far away. We're negotiating and closing deals. I never met anybody from Skystone in person, for example, because we started doing business as the pandemic hit, and we're good. So I would love to go to these events, but I guess it's been a really big wake up call to a lot of industries, and they're like, "Oh, this meeting could have been an email."
Yeah, right.
So you guys are probably focusing all your might on Spacelines from the Far Out at the moment, but has there been any ideas tossed around, like, I don't know, like DLC or like another game or a sequel to it or something?
Yes. Usually when you design a game, there's a bunch of ideas that when you're getting close to release, you're like, oh shit, there's no time.
Mm-hmm.
And those things become DLCs.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that we're planning to release after the initial one. And it's cool because it's a modular game, so we can release more spaceships, more upgrades, more unlockable stuff. But there's also plans of like some mechanics that are not going to be in the initial release that we're going to have later. So our hope is to spend also a good portion of post-release still working on the game. We want people to like it, and we want to keep making it. And if not, maybe you'll see one of those projects in our portfolio come up next year.
There you go.
Oh, I'm very excited to see. Any advice you'd give like a developer working on their first game, hoping to be like as successful as you are?
There's a lot. It's difficult to choose one, but I guess
whatever's fine. Don't stress about it.
Yeah, manage your expectations, and know the balance between patience and persistence. Like the sooner you accept it's going to take a long time, and your game is not good, the easier, because it's not, the path is difficult and takes a long time to make these things work. This doesn't mean that it's not possible. It just takes a long time. And I think that people usually have this gut reaction that, oh, it didn't work. That's a sign that it's not going to work. So we have this kind of bias, the survivor bias, like we always pay so much attention to the crazy stories of like the guy who made Minecraft. He made it alone and he became a billionaire. Yeah, that's one guy, but there's a whole industry, and most people just go step by step, and they do a good job and they do it responsibly. They don't just dive into it, but they also are persistent enough. And so take your time and always be around more experienced people. Ask questions. People like being mentors. You're not being annoying. Just go ahead and ask somebody, oh, what do you think? What should I do? And yeah, I guess. And also, if you're going to make your first game, don't underestimate how hard it is to make a game. Don't be like, oh, I don't want to make something simple like Candy Crush. Candy Crush is not simple. It's extremely difficult to make something like Candy Crush. Tetris is hard to make. I'm making a simple party game. I've been doing it for years. Like a game like Grand Theft Auto. People are like, oh, I'm gonna make like Grand Theft Auto, but mixed with God of War. That's hundreds and hundreds of people and hundreds of millions of dollars being shot at it for it to happen. Just try to make a simple game that you can finish, and it's all good. It's not a problem. You don't need to innovate everything at once. If your game is 5% new, that's good enough for a first game. You don't need to. Everything needs to be groundbreaking. So manage your expectations and what you can actually accomplish. I guess that's my advice.
It's good advice, though. It's good advice.
Yeah. Well, since you're here on the show, is there anything else you'd like to promote at all?
Anything I'd like to promote?
Buy Spacelines from the Far Out on Steam, or buy it on Xbox.
That I'd certainly like to promote my game. So yeah, Spacelines from the Far Out. It's a really fun game. You're gonna have a lot of fun. As you can play it locally and online. If you want to test it out, we have some test versions available. On Monday, we're going to release the flight school version, which is kind of like a standalone demo campaign for free on Steam. So make sure to check it out. Wishlist it so when it comes out, you can get it. And it's going to be on Xbox, PC, Mac, Linux. Follow us and
buy the game.
Buy the game and hope you enjoy it. Have fun with it.
I'm sure they will, because I've been having fun with it.
Yeah, it's a fun game. You don't. I think the toughest part is just making the passengers happy, and occasionally having to run over to the radar to see if there's an asteroid that you got to avoid. But
that's the fun of it, though.
Yeah. So watching it, but I've had quite a few of the passengers dancing around, and because I got to go to the bathroom or something like, and I'm like, I could stop at that restroom, or there's the terminals coming right up, so I'm gonna just gun it and try to get to the terminal as quickly as I can.
To make decisions, yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a really fun game. I recommend that if you're out there and you want to try this game out, definitely at least try the demo out, see if you like it, and then go from there. But I think it's well worth the purchase on either Xbox, Steam, or Nintendo Switch, or whatever else you're using for a platform for gaming. It's awesome. So, but we want to thank you, Fabio, for joining us. This has been really great. This is fantastic.
Nice meeting you.
A lot of good advice for those that are out there looking to become a developer and do their own type of game. I think it's great advice that you gave, because I think it is really important to just sort of know what your expectations are, and don't go into it thinking like, okay, I'm going to be the next, my game's going to be the next, like you said, Borderlands or Grand Theft Auto or something huge. Go into it thinking, I can develop a game, but it's not going to be gigantic. But hey, at least the developing part of it is the first step, right? I mean, you got to get it out there and get it done. And like you said, don't be afraid to reach out to those that have done this and have the experience and ask for advice. Because I think that's where a lot of people tend to get down on themselves, is they don't do that type of, they don't take that step. They don't ask for the feedback and stuff that they, probably need would help them. So.
Yeah. And I'm in a way saying people that like, you can't be the next God of War or Grand Theft Auto. It's just that you have to at least prove to yourself that you can make Pong.
Right.
Everyone that has a big game ever first had a small game.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. It's just a road, and you have to follow it. Steps.
Yeah. And you learn from those small steps. You learn from the small games what worked, what didn't work, and then you can improve on it each time. It gets a little bit bigger or a little bit better. So, yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Fabio, for joining us.
It's been a big pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you and
excited to do this.
Talking to you. And it's been fantastic playing the game. Obviously, it's in my library on Steam, so I'm playing it with a joystick. So I do have a controller I'm using. So, but you can play with it with the keyboards too. For me, controller I think is just more natural for me. But either way, it's a lot of fun. And if you play games like the theme park games and type of stuff like that, it's yeah, absolutely. So, and I know that's one of Mr. K's their favorite type of genres, the roguelike games. So it's great for him to play this too. So, all right. I think that is all we have on that. I think we've hit all the questions. So again, thank you very much, Fabio. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.